Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary to share another contemplative focus with you today. And what I want to share today is simply loving kindness and compassion is the expression of unified consciousness. The constancy of loving kindness and compassion in anyone's experience is an experience of evolved, individuated consciousness. First, the mind and the mind field, as we call it, becomes balanced through meditation and living a holistic lifestyle. And secondly, the heart field becomes more and more actualized and is the primary focus. The polarized dominance has been reversed, and love-based, life-affirmative experience is the normal. This is the philosophical explanation based on the holistic model of reality and the mechanics of consciousness. In short, this is how it all works. If you're evolved, if you've had many, many lifetimes of the human experience and you've grown to the point where you are no longer completely identified with the human experience, you begin to question what that is. And as you experience your life, you also begin to ask certain questions that are pretty common to people when they reach the point in their own spiritual evolution to where this comes up for them whenever they take a human form. And that's basically, how did I get here? What am I doing here? And what is it all about? My teacher used to joke about, he said, how did I get here and how do I get out of it? So basically, the human experience is at the ground level when you first began this journey in the creation game. You're so involved and immersed in your identification of being a human being that you never question any of it. And of course, the amount of happiness and the amount of love and compassion that you have within you that you experience is minimal. You might have that feeling towards your family, and that's about as far as it goes. And it's very limited to a very small group around you, immediately around you. And so, but as you meditate, once you become interested in meditation, when you have evolved yourself to the point where that's something that you want to try out, you're curious because you're somehow, something in you draws you to that experience, and so you want to start finding out what that is. And so you meditate and you start to grow the balance in your mind field. Your mind becomes more and more balanced, which means it's not running all the time. And you continue to meditate and live a holistic lifestyle until your mind becomes, well, not necessarily still, but when stillness becomes a part of your experience. When you first start to experience stillness, the pleasure and the upliftment that you have in that experience it validates why you're doing it, and it draws you into doing more. It's you experience the value of the meditation and holistic lifestyle. You experience the value of balance, and so within that experience, you continue to do so. You practice meditation on a daily basis. You practice contemplation such as this. You question and try to understand more and more about your experience, and as you go through this process, you develop more and more awareness and more kindness and more compassion, because your identification as a human being begins to broaden out and starts to include everything, all of life, basically, because ultimately, when you have evolved yourself to a point where you would be called illumined, fully illumined, then your identification with your ego is your awareness of your ego remains. You still work with your ego, but your identification with the ego is not there anymore, because your experience of who you truly are, who you ultimately are, is that one source consciousness. And everything around you, all and everything, is that same consciousness. You see it, you experience it, so there's no other out there. It's all one consciousness, even though the creation game is going on around you, and there are many human beings in your life and in your world that are still unaware, relatively unaware, and going through their process. All you feel for them is the compassion, because you have gone through it yourself. You know what they're going through, and it's not a pleasant experience. Oh, there's sometimes it's pleasant, but that's the exception when you're imbalanced to the negative polarity in this creation game, because your heart is not fully open. In fact, in some cases, it may not be open at all. It can be a very stressful and disappointing experience when you're fully imbalanced and the negative polarity is dominant in your emotions, in your mind, and your heart is very difficult to, it can't express itself. You don't really have an open heart because you're living in a fear-based experience of life. Everything is a threat to you, even though you may not see it that way. It may be an unconscious to that fact of your life. Basically, most of the world is going through life in that mode. They are separate from everything and everyone around them, and they're competing for what they need to survive. And beyond their immediate family, they're just tied into this fear-based mode, and they don't know why, and perhaps they've never questioned that before. And this is what religious traditions try to address in their way, but that's really just going into the mind and trying to enforce a belief. And there is a mystical element in the religious traditions, but that is the exception to those who practice such traditions, because they're still locked into a dominant mind field, which is always thinking and running data that is coming out of their identification with their ego. They're trying to save an ego, but an ego truly isn't even real. When death comes and someone dies, it's not really a death at all. The ego dies, but they move on, and they go on to their next appropriate experience in their evolution, whatever that might be, and wherever that might be. So that's really the truth of what life is all about. We are the ultimate truth of all and everything, pretending to be who we are not. We're pretending to be a human being, isolated from all and everything in our world, and trying to do our best to survive. And that's basically the name of the game until you evolve yourself to the point where you discover the truth of yourself. And from that point on, the old world, the fear-based world, gets turned upside down. I'm speaking of my own experience here. But you're still relatively ignorant about the mechanics of consciousness, how it all works, and who are you beyond your ego. You know that your ego isn't everything in your world, but you don't know fully what else there is because you haven't developed enough balance in the beginning of this process to have that experience. But eventually you get there, and along the way in your evolutionary process, and when you're meditating and developing more balance, there are peak moments, peak experiences that validate what you're doing. You have a moment where you touch that truth of yourself, where the compassion and love for all and everything happens for a moment, and then eventually it starts to happen for more moments, and it continues to grow in your experience until you reach a point of positive polarity dominance in your experience, that it becomes a constant. And this is when the presence of your truth becomes a palpable part of your every moment-to-moment experience. And that starts to grow as you continue to meditate and live the holistic lifestyle. and it continues to grow until it becomes fundamentally the all and everything of your experience of who you and what you are. Huh? So, in my experience, the presence has become palpable and part of my experience for many years now, and it continues to grow as I continue to live my holistic lifestyle and meditate on a daily basis and do things like this video where I'm trying to share something of my experience with people that might find some value or interest in it. And it doesn't matter if it's one person or millions. It's really just a sharing them. I like to try to stimulate some interest and encourage people to take on meditation and try it out and to live that holistic lifestyle to see for themselves. It's not about believing, it's about discovering and experience and validating it through your own experience. Huh? Because once you have your own experience of the truth of who you are, nothing can tell you anything different because you know it to the roots of your very being that that's who you really are. There's so much more to you and so much more to life and so much more to everybody's life. Huh? So you value life. You value all life because it's all part of the same creation game. It's all the same consciousness that you are. So there's no other in truth. There's many others in the illusion that is going on simultaneously to this human experience, to my experience, to your experience, and so forth. But that's not the ultimate truth. That's not really what there is in the world. This is not why we're here. This is not what we're doing here. We're not doing here. We're being here. We're more of a witness to what's here in this creation game than we are a reality that's living in it. Though when we're identified with our ego, of course, that's what we experience. We're living in it. We're living on Earth. We're living in this universe and so forth and so on. And so we have all the drama and all the experiences of relationship and attempts to find love and so forth and so on. But ultimately, it doesn't last because everything in the illusion of who we are is a temporary creation so that we can play out the game that we agreed to play. We want to pretend like we're a human being, and we do, and we become so involved in that game that we become convinced that that's who we are and what life is, but it's never satisfying. It doesn't quite get there for us. And so people try all kinds of things to try to generate an experience that is loving and that is self-acceptance and that is joyful. And of course, this is what people are preoccupied with throughout the world, and we know this very well in this day and age because of the drugs and all the new tools for trying to get there through a substance outside of ourselves. Huh? But ultimately, that doesn't do it either. It can if you're in the right context, but not many of us are in that kind of a context. So if we try to do it that way, it might stimulate us and encourage us when we're not in that particular setting to meditate, which is good because that's evolving and that is creating more balance in yourself. And the best meditation system or technique that you can use is the one that works for you, the one that you're drawn to, the one that yields peak experience in yourself, that allows you to have the experiences that continue to tell you that you're much, much more than a human being. Huh? So for me, that was our technology here at Synchronicity, and I've been with them. I've been here as a practitioner of their meditation system about 40 years, and 30 years of that have been here on location. But I know it works because I've experienced it. But I just mention that because if you're struggling, if you're trying to meditate in the old-fashioned style where there's no technology involved, in this day and age with so many human beings in the world, it becomes more and more difficult. The mind field, the collective mind field, is much, much stronger today than it was, say, a few thousand years ago when there was far fewer people in the world. So all the collective thoughts that are present in the world have grown in their strength. And so using a technology to help you meditate is more and more of a necessity. And it's a wise choice to make, because why would you want to struggle more to get to where you want to get? Doesn't make much sense. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Loving kindness and compassion is a natural expression of the truth of who you are. And to get there, all you have to do is meditate, 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 and get into the journey and enjoy it for what it really is. I thank you for watching this fine Monday morning, and I hope to see you again next week. Thank you so much for watching.